All right, everybody, welcome to episode 125 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I am with the co-host with the most, Drew at DR underscore PRA. Drew, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. We are a little over halfway cross country right now. You can see I'm in a hotel room, so forgive me if my audio and or video pause momentarily. But just got out to Mount Rushmore this afternoon. Got to see the artwork on the mountain, and it's been pretty cool. So it's good to be here with you guys, though.
Man, it's good to be here, and I am excited about this one. These are two of not my favorite analysts, my favorite people that do this thing. We got J Mike at J Mike Check and Zach Reed at Tacit Assassin 13. Fellas, how are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. I don't want to speak for J Mike. I'm doing great tonight. It's good to be back here with you, Josh. It's good to be on the show. It's fun to be talking rookie still, and so I'm excited. I'm excited to chop it up.
Zach is 100% speaking for me. Yes, I'm in the same place. I'm not tired of the rookie talk. I am excited to be able to finally reap what we've sown and be able to get a nice harvest here this rookie season. And we're on the doorstep, so I'm thrilled about it. And thank you guys for having us. Super
Uh,
humbled to be here.
So
it's
excited.
our pleasure. And when I started this thing, it seems like it was a million years ago, but about 3 years ago, I said April's got to be draft month for us. I mean, that was the first thing that really drew me to the NFL was the draft and who's picking and the strategy behind the actual NFL draft. And then finally, when I got into Dynasty, it was like, wait a minute, I can kind of do this too on a slightly smaller scale. Like this is a trade and take guys that people don't agree with me on, and it's awesome. I love it, and I love the whole process. Before we get started, though, why don't you tell everybody who's listening who you guys are, what's your Twitter handle, what are you up to, what are you doing?
Go for it, Zach.
So we are the Dynasty Dummies. You can find us over at the DFPN network. It's the only network in town, so it's easy to find. And I am at Tacit Assassin 13. J Mike, you mentioned, is at J Mike Check. And look, man, we've been doing Dynasty for a long time. It's we're the dummies, and we put that right out there. And I subscribe to the theory that anybody who tells you they know for sure is trying to sell you something. We're fully upfront. We don't know for sure, but we'll tell you what we think, and we'll tell you how we got there, which to me is more important. The how and the why is a lot more important than the what, because if we teach you why and how, you can build your own process, and that's the way to get there.
And that's what I love about you guys. That's why I love the show, because it's not just, hey, take player X because I said so, or take player X because they run fast or jump high. You actually really get into it. Uh, Tell us what you guys are seeing, but you always put that disclaimer in there. Hey, this is what we're seeing. Don't take our word as the gospel. We are not we don't see into the future. We're just telling you what we see, and that's what I love about you guys, because I will say most of the time I agree with you guys, but sometimes I don't, and that's fine, because guess what? Somebody's going to be right in that situation. Somebody's going to be wrong, and it just helps us build our process. Why were we wrong? What did we what did we get wrong about this? Or especially when we're talking about later round guys, which is something we're going to do in a little bit. Why did we get this right? Like, why were we on this guy when other people weren't? What did we see, and how can we incorporate that maybe to find the next James Robinson, the next, guy that everyone is saying, not this guy. I'm not going to take this guy. There's no reason to. Who actually blows up. So that's what I love about you guys. But before we get to the fun stuff, let's talk about this news. There was a little bit of news, not as much as there has been in previous weeks, but Noah Fant gets his 5th-year option picked up. The first player out of the 2019 class to get that 5th-year option picked up. And honestly, I think if we were taking bets, I don't know if Noah Fant would have been the guy that we would have put our money on. But hey, here we are. How do you feel about this for fantasy? Because I think Drew and I were actually doing an auction draft right now, and we are kind of on opposite sides of the fence on Noah Fant. So I want to talk to you guys. How do you guys feel about this, and how do you guys feel about Noah Fant for Dynasty?
Shrug. I mean, it's no. So again, the way I play tight end is different than a lot of people because I'm either going to have one of those. Now it's like a big 5, maybe. I mean, you got Pitts, Kittle, Andrews, Kelsey, Waller. Like I'm going to have one of those 5 guys, or I am going to scattershot later round tight ends and just play kind of a melange of figuring out who's got the better matchup, who's playing defenses that traditionally give up points to tight ends because you're looking for touchdowns. After those 5 guys, you're really looking for touchdowns. There are generally 6 or 7 tight ends a year who see 100+ targets. So if you're not in a tight end premium, none of those guys matter. If you're in a tight end premium, only the guys that are seeing 100 targets matter. And so beyond that, you're just looking for touchdowns. Now, Fant is athletic, which is something you look for in a tight end. And if the community has cooled enough that he's not being taken in the top 15 tight ends, then great. I mean, it's the Evan Ingram corollary. Like Evan Ingram is a player that people have come off. He's still a good tight end. He's not a great tight end, but you don't need great tight ends unless you're getting one of those top 5.
And the expectations are what's key there. What is the expectation that you have for Noah Fant? Because we're looking at a player now, and please someone tell me if something's changed. Sometimes I keep my eyes off Twitter for long periods of time, and I kind of bury my head in the sand and I dive away for a little while. But last I checked, Noah Fant traded to Seattle Seahawks, right? Awesome that they picked up his option. That's great. Cool. We know that he's going to be around. Let me also get this straight. This is an offense that tends to run the ball a lot. And there's a couple of other tight ends there that people have had hopes for over the last couple of years. One in Gerald Everett, and then one in Will Dissly, who they just paid this offseason, who kind of came out of nowhere, got hurt, and flashed again when he came back. So someone's going to have to help me understand what am I getting excited about, or what are the expectations in an offense that highlights we are all DK Metcalf, right? Shirts off, we're all DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett, and now these 3 tight ends. So I mean, if they're just running 3 tight ends, 2 wide receivers all day long and empty, then okay, sweet, maybe I can get excited. But this is not something that I'm particularly thrilled about, and it's about the expectations piece. If you're expecting Fant to blow the doors off or be some top 10 option for you, then I would say that that's something to temper expectations on, possibly, because I don't love the expectations that you're setting yourself up for.
And as we're talking about hashtag team shirts off, we got this one here from Short Logic, star stud
Logic
tonight. So as team hashtag team shirts off. That's what we are. Drew, we're in this this dynasty auction together, and we talked about Noah Fant for like a minute, and I know you're on the pro Noah Fant side, and I'm on the kind of the Zach side. So, what has you excited? I do want to hear your thought process behind this. What has got you excited?
Yeah, I think the main thing is he is athletic. He's shown the athleticism when he was in Denver, got the ball in his hands in space, was able to make some big plays with it. We're in a 2-point premium, so I'm okay going after him there. And I think I'm kind of in the middle. We missed out on Andrews. We didn't want to go as high as the league was pushing Andrews and Kittle. Pitts went for more than Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott,
I think about 18%
Deshaun
of the
Watson.
budget.
So we weren't paying up for that in this league. So then we started looking at kind of the next tier and, can we put a couple guys together? So Fant's a guy that I like for the upside. I like when, we're looking at some rumors where, is it possible that Lockett is not there next year? Sure. Is there going to be some shifting around? His quarterback at this particular moment is the same one that he had in Denver. So at least you kind of know what his floor is, right? And then the hope is that he gets somebody a little bit better. So those are a couple of things that I'm willing to gamble on to a certain point. And that's where, I love J-Mike, the reminder of the expectations. And then what are you willing to pay for the possibility of those expectations to come true? So we quit at about 6% of the budget. I think we capped out, it's $1,000 budget. So we maxed out around $58, $59, and somebody else got him. Somebody took him for over 60, I think. And that's fine. So now we're pivoting back to, a guy that we both like in Goddard, hopefully, similar for him, athletic guy. We've seen him take some short passes to the house, and then we're going to kind of backload with some younger guys like Cole Kmet, hopefully cheaper, and a couple other guys that we like. So, but as far as Fant, I've liked him since he came out. I was actually, I preferred him to Hawkinson in that class, even though I think most folks were taking Hawkinson before. So there were a lot of leagues where I was able to get Fant, after the turn when people took Hawk first, and I was content with that to start. So he's still young. He's still got plenty of time. There's a lot that can change in the next couple of seasons still. But for this year, he's probably in. I think he can easily get into the top 12 based on how tight ends tend to spread themselves out. So we're going heavier on some of the other positions. So I'm okay to get some guys that we like that maybe are middle of the road and have a broader range of outcomes.
There you go. So yeah, there we go. A lot more time than I thought we would spend talking about Noah Fant, but here we are. And then the next one, this one just came down today. I was actually in a work meeting and almost pulled one of the guys in the meeting to the side and said, "Hey, did you hear about this? Derek Carr signing a 3-year, $121.5 million extension." It's funny because after new head coach comes to town, we're like, man, Derek Carr might get traded. The AFC West was just bulking up. Every good player that could be signed or traded was going to the AFC West. And then, wait a minute. No, they're not going to trade him. Apparently, they're going to get Davante Adams. They're going to bring him in. They're going to sign Chandler Jones on defense. So this team is saying, yeah, you guys are bulking up, but so are we. We're not going to just accept that we're supposed to be apparently the 4th place team, even though they were a playoff team last year. I know that's hard to believe. They took the Bengals to the limit. They could have been the reason why the Joe Burrow story didn't happen. So does this change any feeling that you have about Derek Carr? It doesn't change anything for me. I like Derek Carr as that kind of QB2 in a super flex that probably shouldn't be your QB2, but everyone hates him, so he's going to end up being your QB2 a lot. And this doesn't really change anything. He's just going to be with Davante Adams for 3 more years. So I like that a lot. We'll just go around. We'll start with you, Drew. Drew, what do you think about this? You like it? You don't like it? Any changes?
No, I think it solidifies. I think we all liked it when Davante chose to go to Las Vegas. We felt a little bit better, a little more stable there. So I think this just solidifies that they've got that connection and they should be there for the next couple of years. So everybody's healthy. So doesn't change a whole lot for me.
All right, Zach, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have asked for anything more than Carr gave you last year. If you're a Raiders fan, if you're that organization, as a fantasy football manager, yeah, he's a QB2 that is probably going to be like a mid to high end QB2. that you can get for a song because people don't care about Derek Carr. He's one of the most disrespected quarterbacks in the league, and I am firmly partially to blame. Like I will slander Derek Carr at any chance I get. I even somewhere out there is a Derek Carr parody to OMC, but yeah, but it's good for fantasy. You know what you're going to get. You know he's going to be there. You know he's going to be slinging it. You know he's got good wide receivers. He's got wide receiver 1 Hunter Renfrow. He also has Devontae Adams. He's got Darren Waller. So it's a good situation for him. He's going to be another cheap get in super flex leagues, and he's the type of quarterback. Carr and Cousins and that ilk are the guys that I usually end up with. So,
all right, J-Mock, round us out.
Listen, the extension isn't necessarily the thing that for me that's super exciting. As the rain starts to hit a little bit harder as we talk about Derek Carr. Listen, I think it's, dare I say, things are looking up for Derek Carr. Okay, he gets top flight wide receiver of the world, Craig, top flight. So he gets Devontae Adams. Obviously, we like the pieces around him. Couple of receivers, a really good tight end, running back that's oft injured but also productive when he's around. But when we look at it, he's surrounded with, and you could argue, as much talent, if not more than at any point in his career. And this is now coming from I guess the piece of it is the transition now away from Gruden. And a lot of times when we don't have that cohesion coming into a new season, I tend to take a step back from those situations, and I don't want to put all my eggs into a lot of change in that sense. However, Derek Carr, being the steady veteran that he's been, paired with a guy that he's got good chemistry with, obviously, in Adams, I'm pretty excited for what Carr could be. And I'm not saying QB1 or in the top 12 or anything of that nature, but I do think that he's a shining option for you, obviously at QB2. So I'm excited for Carr this season.
Yeah, and I have to like any quarterback that can get Zay Jones as much money as Derek Carr got Zay Jones.
Come on.
So,
yeah.
Hey, I'll be a Derek Carr guy for life after that, because the amount of money he got Zay Jones was amazing. I didn't think anyone could do it, but hey, Derek Carr did. So that's awesome. So two very smart people, two very intelligent guests. We're gonna have you guys take a look at our auction. Drew and I decided to get into an auction together. This is the first time Drew and I are co-managing a team together. So we wanted to see how much fun it would be. Drew, I'll let you take it away and kind of read off our roster and let the fellas tell us what they like and what they don't like about it.
All right. So you guys are pretty familiar with the safe leagues, format: 12 team, Superflex, 2.0 premium, start 10, 28 to 30 person roster. So, we start with $1,000 budget. We actually did something that I typically don't do, which is we sold our 23 first for 10% extra budget. So that was the first big decision that we made. Typically, I like to hold my first, especially with this 23 class coming up. But we're talking about essentially getting ourselves another, back end wide receiver 1 or some options like that. There were a lot of people in this auction that were trying to get those first, and the prices went up quickly. I think the first that got purchased was for something like $75, so 7.5%. And then, within 8 to 12 hours later, we were demanding and getting 10%. So that felt pretty good. So to start, we wanted ideally an elite player at each position, and then fill in with value around. So our first goal was I'm a Bills homer, so I was hoping to get Josh Allen, and he pushed up to or beyond 25% of the budget pretty quick. So we pivoted back to, Herbert was our second option along with Mahomes. We ended up getting Herbert for about 24% of the budget. And then QB2 we backed in with Aaron Rodgers. And then we we are a pro Javante show. If you go back into our archives, so we got Javante as our RB1 right now. And then for wide receiver, we actually got surprised with some people let us sneak some value through here. I think we're able to get Deontay, DK, Devonta Smith, and Jalen Waddle as our top 4 wide receivers right now. So those are the 7 players that we've currently got rostered. And we are currently a high bidder at about 10% on Dallas Goedert. We've got Cole Kmet, Chase Edmonds, Marvin Jones for a couple bucks, Baker Mayfield for a couple bucks, and then Kareem Hunt for a couple bucks, sitting kind of waiting to time out, 16-hour timer. So you got to wait overnight most of these times. And that leaves us with about $80 left, 85-ish, depending on what, we get pushed to on those prices. So we've got some rookies that we're eyeing up for some RB depth and possibly some tight end depth. But that's where we are at this point. And then we'll sort out QB3, as it comes to us. We're hoping, I think Matt Ryan's at the top of our list. He hasn't been nominated yet. So trying to find the time to sneak him in.
Yes, I like that. That's a start that especially, and I know you got excited about Javante, you got excited about Herbert, but the way I dynasty is those young wide receivers. And I love that start.
Yeah, we were pretty shocked about the fact that everybody saw that we had Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, and Deontay with the high bid at about a little bit less than 10% on all 3 guys. And I thought for sure someone was going to see that and be like, we can't let this happen. So I'm like looking at the clock and I go, someone's going to redline us. It's going to happen. Someone's going to redline us. And then they all pretty much went off a timer at the same time.
Yeah.
It was within like 5 or 10 minutes of each other.
Hmm.
So it was I just got the email. You got Jalen Waddle. Okay, cool. You got Deontay Johnson. Oh, okay. Someone's definitely going to take Devonta Smith because nobody's going to. You got Devonta Smith. And I said, okay, and we had already had DK on the roster before those 3 guys went off. So I was like, we caught people napping. They let us have a lot of these guys for a song. I mean,
yeah, we got our wide receiver room for about a third of our budget.
Yeah.
Wow.
And those guys, I mean, we didn't have to overpay for, and everybody can have their opinion on these guys, but like a Michael Pittman or, guys like that where you're like, all right, there's upside, there's hope, but we haven't seen them do it. Like we've seen all these guys do it.
That's one where you go back and you look at when you bid and try to hit that same time, because there may be a time frame gap. I've watched enough Bosch and Kevin Cotillo in auctions to know that if you can strategize even your timing of bids, man, it makes a difference. So,
and Drew and I have done that to a much smaller extent than those guys do, because those guys are like, they're geniuses at what they do when it comes to the auction game. And Drew and I have done some baby steps. They're, they've got, doctorates in it, but we're taking the baby steps and we're like, oh, if we can put this guy up right now, we've kind of figured where most of the people are time zone wise. So we're like, a lot of these people are going to be asleep for about 8 hours. We can burn half the clock just on sleep if, so we've done that to a much smaller extent than those guys do it. But yeah, we were shocked when all 3 of those guys went expecting to get red line, that at least one of them, probably 2 of them. And yeah, they
Curious.
let us
Curious after hearing all that though. Do you guys have any names that come to mind, jump out, whether, cheap vets to round out, or maybe some rookies that, we're hurting at running back right now. We've got Javante that we like, but we're trying to find out, where we can stack some depth there.
Fournette is the one that, like, if you, because you're obviously building a contender. I mean, a cheap vet who's going to score pretty close to a running back 1 this year. Fournette's easy money.
Yeah, Fournette is at, I think, 5.5% right
at $56 right now.
Yeah,
and an even cheaper option if you want to go a little further down. What Arizona did with James Conner.
Yep.
Hey, here a guy who we're thinking, okay, he's in Arizona for a year and then he'll go maybe get paid elsewhere. No, they gave Chase Edmonds the boot, and they said, hey, we'll keep you around, James. So I think that's another guy that can definitely supplement and give you way more bang for your buck.
Connor's
At
sitting
that
at
RB2 spot.
36 right now. And then I actually had a question. We actually have Edmonds at 26. He's currently where one of our high bids is. And then we got AJ Dillon sitting there at 32.
Oh, Dillon, I didn't expect him to be as cheap as he is there, because at least in the circles that I've been running in, a lot of people are on AJ Dillon big time. And I think that if you're, and I don't know how active those leagues are going to be, but if you're like, man, if you've got the ability to move around and trade people, like, I think Dillon is somebody that I've identified as going to gain value as the season progresses, because I think he's going to be pretty decent, and I think you're going to see a little bit of a shift in that offense in Green Bay. So
and I told Drew, because obviously we've made some big splashy plays, and we have one more big splashy play that we might be making with Goddard. But the guys who haven't been nominated, I said, look, that RB2 might not be the sexiest, but a guy like Rashad Penny still hasn't been nominated. I think we have Kareem Hunt on the board right now for $2. Rojo hasn't been nominated. And trust me, I know a lot of people are like, this is what you're going to rely on. But when our, kind of our starting four at wide receiver is what it is, I don't need to break the bank for an RB2 if, I can kind of fill out other parts of my roster.
And way back end, J.D. McKissick is on all of my rosters. And I know he's not sexy at all, but he's going to have 3 or 4 games where he's a running back one, and you're going to see him coming, and it's going to be fantastic. So that's and you won't have to spend anything on him. I mean, that'll be a nothing.
Too. Yeah.
So
I like that one too. Yeah. So I know Drew and I were talking, and I said, hey, look, it's not always gonna look good after Javonte, but when we're starting those 4 wide receivers every week, we're gonna smile at that. And the RB2 is the RB2. We're gonna be smiling at the rest of our roster. So if there's one thorn on our rose, that's fine. We'll deal with it. We'll just avoid getting stuck. But that's good to hear. I like when smart people say that things look good with teams that in this case, I'm helping to build. I am not building this on my own. So, but all right, let's get to the timeline. This is what we do. This is our favorite thing to do. Get these tweets, put them out here. We have smart helping us answer these questions. And the first 2, I put one out every week. Hey, if you got a question you want asked, here are our guests. What do you want to ask? So first one here is from our DAT Network brother, Rocky, the trade addict, at Dynasty FF Addict. Who are Zach and J Mike's favorite rookies, any position, who aren't likely to go in the first 2 rounds of Superflex rookie drafts? As of today, anyway. So that we have a 2-parter. We'll ask that first, and then we'll ask the second part afterwards.
That's going to be an interesting question, especially before the draft. Like, it's so hard to predict what a dynasty rookie draft is going to look like before you get the NFL draft capital. But players that I have seen go outside of those first couple rounds that I really like, and one name jumps off the page. It'll be interesting to see where he gets drafted, but it's Keontae Ingram. And he has been kind of the pet running back of the Dynasty Dummies, where we did the first 2 episodes where we did 5 or 6 running backs and 5 or 6 running backs. And then we did the catch-all show, and you didn't expect to be excited about players in the catch-all show. And then all of a sudden there's Keontae Ingram, who, out of USC, 6 foot, 215. So he's a big, a good sized back, very good in traffic, is a crease runner, which is something that I really like. It's the way I have described Kareem Hunt when I was watching him. It was the way I described Jonathan Taylor, although they're obviously different backs, but it's the ability to have a small opening, get small through the hole, and then all of a sudden come out the other side where the defense isn't expecting you to be. And he does that. I think he's got really good patience letting holes develop. He's good at utilizing angles and cuts in space. And so there are a lot of things that I like about Keontae Ingram. Drawbacks, doesn't have a lot of power. And which, even though he's a pretty good sized back, like you see him get stopped in goal line in short situations, don't love that. He sometimes lacks suddenness. So like he's good at cutting in space, but if he's in a phone booth, maybe not so much. It'll be interesting to me to see where he lands. He's probably not taking over a backfield, but if he lands someplace like Miami, I know they've added a whole bunch of backs, or San Francisco or Seattle, someplace where, or even in Arizona, where we just talked about James Conner, like someplace where there's a chance to get a little bit of run. I think he's a good back. And so he's one of the players that I'm looking at a little bit later in drafts.
All right, J. Mike, who's your guy outside of those first 2 rounds that you've been keeping an eye on?
Yeah, and this one, for whatever reason, is I think becoming more and more popular to people just because of what he did at the combine. But Pierre Strong Jr. out of South Dakota State, he was one of the guys I was super and am just high. I think I'm higher on than most. Had a pretty high film grade for me, and the thing that I like most about Pierre Strong is his vision through the second level, routinely, time and again. And this is something that we know that translates incredibly well from the collegiate level to the NFL, is being able to see the pieces on the chessboard as they're moving, right? And he's able to adjust and shift incredibly well to be able to maximize what he can get at the second level. He was a player that people were curious as to how he would fare athletically. And then he goes to the combine and shows off with a 4.3 40. I think it was a 4.37 40, 10-foot broad jump, 36-inch vertical, 5'11", 202. And all of a sudden he's like, oh, this guy kind of looks like those other guys at much bigger schools with many more resources. So if we're looking at a guy, and I think he's probably someone who more as people continue to kind of get on the bandwagon, as his name gets mentioned as a sleeper, quote unquote, in the class, it may be a case. And we've done a couple of different mocks. I've done a couple of different mocks. We did one, Dynasty Dummies and Friends, if you will. And then we did one also with another group, the folks over at TFA. And Pierre Strong went at the end of the second in that one, and he wasn't even taken in our dummies mock. And he was one of our honorable mentions that I argued, or that I mentioned. So I'm excited to be able to get Pierre Strong at all places, similar to Keontae Ingram. Okay, he's going to lack the power in some instances. He is going to be tackled in some instances by that first guy at the second level. However, the things that he can do, he does them really well. Super producer. And I'm excited to be able to get Pierre Strong in any and every place that I can. And I'm excited to see how NFL teams are going to view him, especially with how he's shown out in this 9-point scoring season. What up, Russ?
Yeah, and it's funny because as Drew and I were talking about our auction strategy, we were like, all right, who are some of the $1 guys that we're going to want to get at the end? Who we're going to have a few bucks left. We're going to need to fill a couple spots. And one of the guys that we brought up was Pierre Strong. So I like that one. I like the Keontae Ingram one too. And that's more not because of what I've seen, because honestly, I will admit I have not seen anything of Keontae Ingram. But people who are really smart and people who I trust what they do have really started to talk him up, lately. It actually feels like he's kind of gained steam a little bit in the last couple of weeks. And so that's one that I'm hoping I have a little bit of time before my rookie draft to just look at a little tape, talk to the analytics guys, because I always tell people the reason why I don't I don't do rankings is because I'm average at watching tape, and the reason why I don't do analytics is because I'm average at spreadsheets. So I leave that to the people who are better than I, and then I just kind of I do my own thing, and then kind of talk to others. But those are two good. Rocky, when you listen to this, remember Keontae Ingram and Pierre Strong. Uh, have those guys. Drew and I are in a few leagues together, and I have a feeling that this rookie season we're going to have fights over
Oh,
Pierre
it's going to be
Strong.
fun. It's going to be fun.
So
Brian Robbins is another one that's come up for us too. See where he lands. Some early ADP has him a little bit later, like maybe back end or middle to the back end of the third. But he's definitely another guy we want to get our hands on.
And in our rookie market, like I took him early in the second. Like he is my running back 4 or 5 right now. Like depending on where Kyron Williams lands, he could end up being as high as 4 for me. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on him because he's not sexy. Like he's just not. You watch him run and you're like, okay, it's fine, but he does so many things that I like and has enough in the pass catching with those pass catching chops that I think you could end up with a running back who carries the ball between the tackles well, but also could end up with 30, 40 receptions. And that's a real nice running back too. So,
and I know you're not supposed to scout the helmet, but those Alabama boys usually do okay in the league. So, but yeah, I think Brian Robinson, we actually talked about him a little bit last week as well. He's very interesting, and I think he's going to be somebody that by the time this is all said and done, you got no shots of getting him in the third round, unless obviously, he ends up with like 6th-round draft capital or something like that. That was something unexpected, but past that, I think that once he gets drafted to a team, I think getting him past the second is going to be a pipe dream in most instances. So, all right, let's move it on to the next one. This was another one we got from Bobby Koch. Or actually, no, you know what? I'm sorry, Bobby. Before we get to your question, I forgot the second part of Rocky's question. Also, when is J Mike going to team up with Zach for a song parody? This is what the people really want to know. They want Zach's music stylings with J Mike's golden voice. So when can we expect to see that? Just for Rocky, not for me or anyone, just for Rocky.
Maybe. So J Mike is now a member of my home league, my home dynasty league, and we do an in-person draft, and we will be in the same place, probably at Kyle's house where the original Dynasty Dummy studio is. There are 3 mics there, so that like we might be able to do something with that. I don't know. We'll effort.
Oh,
listen,
man.
we make no promises. All right. So what you said was Bobby. Bobby, don't.
No, that was the second part of Rocky's question.
Rocky, listen, man. If you get it, let it be a pleasant surprise. If you don't, hey, just keep it moving, man. Keep it moving. Business as usual. Leave the musical stylings to Zach. He crushes those.
Now, J Mike, but this was like actually right before the pandemic. We had a little thing going where I was going to eat some a large amount of Skyline chili to get you to get in a league with you. But now I'm thinking maybe I just eat that large amount of Skyline chili just to get that musical styling. I mean, J Mike, how much Skyline chili needs to be consumed? I'll do it during an episode of the timeline so that there's video proof of it. What do we got to do, J Mike? What do we have to do to get the people what they want?
Listen, I need you to understand something, Josh. One does not simply consume pounds of Skyline chili without first having their stomach pre-treated. Okay, you can't. This is something you can't just rush into and expect to come out on the other side okay. This is one of those things where you need to have your will in order. You need to have your assets assessed and make sure that your family is good before you embark on something so dangerous. So listen, it's a lot of skyline. Even a little bit when you aren't ready is dangerous. But I'm happy to have that discussion with you to figure out what that looks like. Because, like you said, if it's about trying to give the people what they want, then perhaps that's something we need to be working out.
Listen, maybe we do it on an episode of the timeline. Maybe we end up making it premium content or something. We are, and I will hype this up right now. The DAP Network is doing a draft show, night one of the NFL draft. So, maybe just while I'm busting out, the talk about the who we got. Maybe Breece Hall goes in the first round. We could chat about him. Treylon Burks.
You're gonna have some real nice Kenny Pickett talk. You're like, get
Pickett
psyched for
talk.
that.
Yeah. Baby Hands Pickett talk. We got, who else Malik Willis talk. Maybe I can be just ingesting some Skyline chili to get the people what they want. So we'll talk about it offline, J Mike. We'll see what we got to do.
We'll have Josh eat a bowl every pick until a skill player is picked.
Yo,
I'm cheering for offensive tackles, baby. Let's go.
Edge rushers and tackles.
How about so that could only be one bowl. A guy could go at 2, but it could get bad enough to where it's like 8.
18?
Nah. I think 8 is the cutoff. I think that's the worst. I think at that point Atlanta would see wide receivers aplenty, quarterbacks aplenty, and they would help me out. But it could be 7 bowls. I mean, so it could get bad quick.
This is not total, Josh. Like this is a skyline. You can't just eat 7 bowls. Oh,
little known fact, Josh. The Masters got its tagline, "A tradition unlike any other," after Jim Nance ate his first bowl of Skyline, and he was never the same. That's where that came from. Little known fact. No, that's total sarcasm. But seriously, it is a tradition unlike any other. So prepare yourself now.
I just want everybody listening to this to know this is what I'm willing to do to get everybody what they want. I'm willing to put myself in mortal peril. I may not even hear the song myself, but you guys will, and that'll be enough for me.
You'll be playing a song.
There you go. You could play that song as they're pumping my stomach and getting all the Skyline back out. All right, this next one here is from Bobby Koch at Wrecked Fantasy. Another 2-parter. Who is Zach drafting in Dash? Are we going to give that confidential information out, Zach?
So I'm missing this drafting in Dash. Like, what's this in the Dynasty Awesome Sauce with the homies? Yes. So this is the league that we're in with Casey Kasem. She won the league and got to name it. So it's Dynasty Awesome Sauce with the homies. I don't usually see it abbreviated. I'm going to draft a lot of players in that league because I have like 4 first-round picks. Or I may go into the chat the day of the draft and say, "Hey, anybody who wants a first-round pick, I'll take a 23 first for them." And part ways. So that's how I'm rolling. I can't give away the inside information that Bobby wants yet. I'm sitting back a little ways. I'm sitting at like 105, 106, 107, somewhere in that range. And I just traded with Bobby. Bobby shouted me out on Twitter. He said I made him a tremendous trade offer, and I ended up getting Mac Jones from him, which I'm okay with. It's a young quarterback. My quarterbacks were octogenarians. Like we're talking, they were up there. So a couple of them had retired. One of them retired, came back. So I needed some youth. So I'll tell him with that 109 that I got back from him, I'm looking to get somebody, a wide receiver, something like maybe David Bell, that ilk, maybe Pickens, maybe Christian Watson. I don't know. The day is young.
So, Bobby, I hope I get a shout out. I got you a lot of prime information there. Players will be taken, or they might become 23 picks. Wide receivers may be taken. maybe it'll be something else. I got you a lot of information there, Bobby. So I just hope on the first part I get that. But he said, jokes aside, uh, what guys are you currently targeting that aren't rookies? So we're going a little script, a little bit non-rookie talk here. Who are some vets, some guys that you guys are trying to all of your teams?
So for me, it's always that tier of wide receivers that are up and coming, but I still think are undervalued. So it's Jalen Waddle. It's that area of player. I think you're getting a little bit of a discount. Stephon Diggs is older, but I think you're getting a little bit of that age discount with him. That's a player that I'm targeting. So there are a few. I think people are fed up with DJ Moore. You see him start to drop. He's only 25. Like he's still got some years. He's been 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns. If you get a quarterback who happens to like know where the red zone is, like that could be a thing. So it's for me, it's always wide receivers, especially this time of year that I'm targeting if we're not talking rookies.
What about you, J Mike?
Yeah, I got a couple. So there's this guy down in Jacksonville, all-time leading rusher in the ACC. I don't know. I thought he was pretty good at football, and people, for whatever reason, he has the Liz Frank injury, and people all of a sudden say that he's bad at football, which I find strange. So Travis Etienne out of Jacksonville. Now, again, listen, I say this as a jaded Jaguars supporter, okay? I recognize they've made terrible decisions over and over. I recognize that they have not necessarily done the best job of sustaining any sort of success that they garner. However, what they have done is they've spent a lot of money to improve the situation from last year. Is it the best situation? Is it something that's really got you excited? Not necessarily. However, it's definitely a better situation than it was last year. And there's no Urban Meyer. That's the biggest thing, which I said from the jump was, anyway, I won't go down. This is a dark place. I don't want to go there. We're having a great time on the timeline. So Travis Etienne is the first one. The next one, if you look at a lot of ADPs, even in the month of April ADPs, this guy's way down the list of wide receivers, like wide receiver 40 something. Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup at wide receiver 46 is, for me, like, if I can get that kind of value on Gallup and him being the number 2 across from CD, or giving you games where he's a wide receiver 1 with Dak, with Kellen Moore still calling plays, and them having that ability to be explosive, bring me Michael Gallup. I know he's coming back from the injury, but as long as we're not seeing anything regarding setbacks, that's someone that's incredibly attainable, who has shown you that he's a really good football player in an offense that's willing to throw the ball. So give me Michael Gallup all day right now as well with the current landscape.
I love those guys, and J Mike, Travis Etienne. I didn't know if I wanted him on my team, and then I heard that man the other day say what he said, and I was like, "Oh, get me that dude on all my teams, man." A reporter just was out there, I think maybe trying to put him on the spot a little bit, and he was just like, "Hey, I might have missed the best year there was to ever miss, so I'm fine with it. It's
He's a
cool."
thinker.
I love that.
Was he
And
really
Mike,
injured is my question.
There you go.
hey,
The long con, Drew. It's the long con.
I have said this since the season has ended. Trevor Lawrence is the first rookie in NFL history that had to be the team's starting quarterback and head coach at the same time. That's a tough road to hoe, no matter who you are. So I got that, and I like the Gallup one. Now I told you guys that I had a Treylon Burks take, and this is kind of the perfect time to put it in. I think at number 24, the Dallas Cowboys take Treylon Burks.
I hope not. That would be so Jerry, but I hope not.
Well,
So, Jerry.
the
So-
first thing you said is the reason why I think it's going to happen.
So the most successful place to run CD Lamb out of is the slot. Like he's great. And he ran, it was like 50 or 60% of the slot when he was in college. When he came out his first year where he was really successful, he ran out of the slot. And I have a back and forth DM with Peter Howard where I said to him, I see CD Lamb sliding inside and getting a whole bunch of targets and being, in the wide receiver like 12 to 16, absolute hit that dart, and then all of a sudden you start sliding them back out. So let's not do that, because then you'd have two wide receivers who are better in the slot. They're just don't do that, Jerry. Don't stop. I know you're listening, Jerry Jones. I know you're in your office right now listening to the timeline. Like,
Yeah,
stop. Don't do it.
I got a direct line to Jerry, and trust me, the first thing that came out of your mouth is the reason why it's going to happen. Now, no, I didn't say the best thing for Treylon Burks is to go number 24 to the Dallas Cowboys. I said what's going to happen is that he goes number 24 to the Dallas Cowboys, because for whatever reason, not only in our rookie rankings and rookie mock drafts has Treylon Burks been sliding, but it's been the same thing in actual NFL mock drafts. Apparently, Treylon Burks, insulted a bunch of GMs, and they were just like, "Nope, no, we're not going to take him anymore." There's the Arkansas connection for Jerry. Jerry has been loving that. Last time he was able to take a first rounder from Arkansas, he did it with Felix Jones. It's going to happen. I'm not saying it's the best for Treylon. I'm not saying it's the best for the Cowboys, but that's what's going to happen. But a couple guys, for me that I've been looking at is Hunter Renfrow. We've just decided that we want to throw him in the trash because Davante Adams is there, and I don't know why we pretend that two wide receivers can't be good on the same team unless you're on certain teams. We're like, no, that can't happen. So why can't Davante Adams and Hunter Renfrow both be good for fantasy is my question to all these people that want to throw them in the trash. That's my big one. That's the one that I'm trying to get on as many of my teams as possible. Drew, do you have any guys that you're kind of going after that you wanted on your teams?
You can tell we've been talking draft for a week straight, because he was the number one that came to mind for me as well. Another cheap kind of deep dive that I'm looking at is Dearness Johnson, getting him super cheap or as a throw-in where I can, or a couple of these startups, either free or dollar, see what happens with that backfield, see how long Kareem Hunt sticks around. He stepped up and did well for a couple of games this last year. So he's a guy I don't mind having stashed away to see, while everybody else is looking at the shiny new. I'll take a guy that's done it a few times.
I love it. So we got some really good guys there. So now let's get to some questions I pulled from the old timeline and see how we feel about these. This one here is from Gulu at Gagliari83. Dynasty Superflex, half point PPR. There's looks like a 2-point tight end premium. This is 12 teams. Deontay and a 23-second versus the 104 and the 109. So we got Deontay and a 23-second on one side, and then we have the 104 and the 109 on the other side. Jay, Mike, let's start with you. How do you feel about this? Which side do you like of this trade?
Deontay has definitely been someone who's grown on me over time. I was not in at the beginning. I'll say that much. In this instance, though, I still think that I want the picks. And I think that the 104 and 109 just offer me the ability to, I think that if I could probably package those and probably go higher than Deontay Johnson in reference to a player that I want. Or if I am getting the 104, that's going to put me in position to really be Excited if the draft breaks in a way that makes people thirsty for whomever maybe going in that first round, like we just talked about with maybe waiting a while with those first round players. We could see it flip on its head as well. So I think I want the picks. I want the flexibility there. And I think that I could probably package those to even go up a level from Deontay. And I do like Deontay as well, though. But give me the two first in this instance.
All right, Zach, what do you think? Deontay in that second, or are we going with the 104 and 109?
I think this is really close. I am going to stay with Deontay because I know that I have a legitimate wide receiver one, right in that borderline of wide receiver 1, 2, which is what you're kind of hoping for with that 104. To me, the 109 and the 23 second are kind of a push. I mean, maybe a little bit more juice on the 109 because it's got the one in front of it. People
Yep.
like that. They like that
Mhm.
first round.
Mhm.
But I see this as really even. It would depend on my team. I like J Mike's idea with the flexibility. If I'm going for it this year, it's go get Deontay and have a wide receiver one. If my team is finished mediocre, if I if I'm middle of the pack or later, then yeah, the flexibility, the picks are where we're headed. So that's kind of how I would play it. But vacuum, it's Deontay.
All right, Drew. So far we are tied 1-1. What side do you have here? Deontay in the second, or the 104 and the 109?
I agree with J Mike here. I think you wait. I'm not trading any picks now unless I'm getting a significant overpay. I'm going to wait the 2 weeks, the 15 days, 16 days until I see what the first couple days hold. And yeah, I think if you offered me Deontay versus the 104 right now, most people would take the 104. I know Josh last year in a draft that we were in, you got Stephon Diggs for the 108 or something last year,
That's
straight
what
up.
I do. But yeah, it was
So
that was a fun time to be alive.
So knowing that you can get a wide receiver 1+ or maybe even a top 8 wide receiver with that 104 when you're on the clock. And then, yeah, that 109, you move back and get something top of the second this year and the second next year. I think you have the flexibility. You can gain more value. And I think this offer is still on the table when you get to the 104 too. If you want to hedge your bets and just say, you know what, I want to push for this year. And if I don't get Kenneth Walker at 104, because I want him as my RB3 or something like that to try to make a push and solidify my running backs, then you can get this deal and get Deontay. And, maybe he's on your roster, he's your wide receiver 3, but he'd be a wide receiver 1 on a lot of teams.
All right, so it's 2-1 here. I can either tie this thing back up or make it a landslide for the 104 and the 109.
I'm ready for it. I'm prepared to be buried.
Well, guess what? I'm here with a shovel. I ain't here to bury you, man. I'm here to dig you right back out. It's going to be Deontay and the second. I get it. Flexibility. Let's do some things. Drew, I like that you brought up the trade that I made, not because it's one of my all-time favorite trades that I've made, but there have been a lot of times that I've been on the clock and I have expected that someone will make a trade for this pick, and it doesn't happen. Crickets. Everybody's like, nope, you got to make this pick. And I don't want to give up Deontay with the expectation that at the 104, someone is going to give me a Stephon Diggs or even a Deontay Johnson. Because as much as we can say, hey, this will be on the board on draft day if everything else fails, that guy sits around for 2 weeks and goes, man, what was I thinking, man? Deontay? Yeah, a lot of these wide receivers have questions. All these wide receivers have questions, really. There's no stone cold, lock it down. This guy's going to be good for the next 7 years without a doubt. We have questions about all these guys. And maybe he goes, nah, you know what? I'm going to keep my Deontay. You can find someone else to give you something. And then you're there at 104. And trust me, there are going to be guys there that we've talked about that we like. Maybe, it might be Garrett Wilson. It might be, whoever. There's a few names. I like the guy that's done it, especially in a class like this where we have a lot of question marks about a lot of guys. And listen, Guess what? Like kind of like Zach was saying about the one. We see a one in front of something and we like, oh, we get all excited. We're still going to get excited about seeing a 23 in front of these picks, even a second rounder. And maybe during the draft, that 23 second rounder can turn into something if we want to, we want to go that route. So give me Deontay, give me the second rounder. I apologize, Gulu. We didn't help you out at all. We split it. And honestly, that's the way this poll went pretty much. It was 57% for the pick side, the 104 and the 109, and 43% for the Deontay in second. So even though there was a slight advantage to the first round picks, it wasn't that, this is pretty much a coin flip, if you offer this in any leagues that you're in. So Gulu, I'm sorry we couldn't give you a majority here, but it's 2-2. You got to decide which guys you like more, and I understand if I'm not a part of that team, that's fine too. So we're gonna hit the next one here. This is from Bobby Bands at Bobby Bands NFL. For fantasy, would you rather, and this is before the draft, would you rather have Breece Hall or Javonte Williams? And even though this was a landslide of a poll, I wanted to get Jay, Mike, and Zach your opinion on this. I've heard people say, hey, this time next year, we're going to be talking about Breece Hall as the running back 2 in all of Dynasty. Are you guys on board with that? Are you guys maybe saying pump the brakes a little bit? Or, maybe you guys don't love Javonte as much as I do. And I love him way more than any person should. So
much love, big love.
But yeah, Drew and I, we're a pro Javonte podcast. We've been pro Deontay from day one. So I'll let you guys take it from here. Breece Hall or Javonte, figuring out where Breece Hall is going to go.
So that's the rub right now for me, is you already know where Javonte is. You've seen his backfield. You've seen him be productive, and he was my running back 1 last year. So it was Javonte and Najee Harris that were graded out very similarly. Breece Hall is pretty close to that ilk. Like he is a lot better than people are giving him, or I say people, some people that I've heard are giving him credit for. You keep hearing him mentioned in the same vein as David Montgomery, and they're looking at the laundry. They're not looking at the player. They're not looking at how great Hall's inside vision is, how good his contact balance is, how good his speed is. But he doesn't, you saw him run at the combine. You're like, wow, he's real fast. He had 4 or 5 real good breakaway runs over his career, but he's not a home run hitter to me. He's a doubles hitter, but man, if you hit enough doubles, that is real nice. And add in his pass catching, I like that. I'm still taking Javonte because I know where he is, but let's not short Breece Hall. Like this poll where it's like 75-25, like that's a little bit crazy to me. That's the dynasty seeing Javonte at like running back 4 or wherever he is, and I think you're going to see Hall get up to like running back 5, 6, 7 anyway. Like I think he's that good, but you've got to have a landing spot where he can assume the mantle of a backfield, and we just don't know that yet.
Yeah. What do you think, Jay, Mike?
Yeah, I think that upside that people are seeing in Breece Hall is the fact that he, unlike Javonte Williams, his ceiling out the gate is best pass catcher in his own backfield, right? And we know that that's the rocket fuel that takes good fantasy players and puts them into difference maker status, right? And so I think that if we had the ability to vote with weight, it wouldn't look like 75-25, right? But if we're just saying, hey, either or, I think a lot of folks are ready to take the known versus the shiny new. But I think I'm with you all in that I'm on the Javante train, and when I graded the two in terms of film grades, Javante had a higher grade than Brees Hall. Just as Zach said, Brees Hall, very good player, but I think that's the really unique piece about Brees is that if he goes to a backfield that allows him, he is the best pass catcher in the backfield. All of a sudden, you like Zach said, you could see him ADP this summer be something that really just gets out of hand. He starts out his career before he takes a snap as a top 5 running back, and like it just kind of gets wonky from there. So, give me Javante, but I understand how Brees can supercharge your dynasty teams.
Javante though has that same upside as a pass catcher. Like people forget this because he split like in a backfield, but he had 50 something targets and over 40 receptions, like splitting a backfield. Like, so man, like both of these players are like, this is a fun time to be a dynasty player because you've got still the old guard from 2017 and 2018 where you had that real big influx of running backs. You had a couple of guys come in last year. You've got another real good running back in Brees Hall. You got Kenneth Walker, who's a great runner, to be determined pass catching because he never was used. It drives me crazy when people tell me he can catch. He probably can. I mean, he's an NFL level athlete. Most of those guys are athletic enough to catch the ball, but the NFL isn't necessarily creative. They're drafting you to do what you've done. But Kenneth Walker is a tremendous runner of the football. So you've got a couple of backs in this class. And then next year, man, there are going to be some run. So like we're back at this. We're replenishing. It's reloading. We're not rebuilding the running backs in Dynasty. We're reloading. So it's a fun time to be playing.
Drew, I'll let you take this one on your way out because I know you're on vacation with the family.
Yeah.
You got to get out. So I'll let you take this one and then we'll say
Sounds
goodbye
good.
to you, my friend.
Yeah, I'm definitely still on Javante. I mean, I've got a couple of leagues where I earned the 101, and I'm trying to get the 102 as well so that I can double dip and get my Brees Hall and Malik Willis, mostly for value for Willis for the next year or so I can try to trade him for what I need. But if I don't get him with the 101, or if I don't get the package of both of them, anywhere I have the 101, I think I am still leaning toward taking Brees Hall because I do like him that much, even in Superflex. But yeah, I am pro Javante. And yeah, that's a great point, Jay Mike, that if it was weighted, it would definitely look different. If we gave them, points of how much we like them compared to the rest of the running back landscape, it would be a lot closer. But yeah, I'm excited to see where his perception goes, and the landing spot will be a lot of fun to see how that polarizes, or maybe, I don't know if Twitter will come together because of that, but it'll be a lot of fun to watch. So I'm excited for the next couple of weeks. And yeah, just a huge thank you to you two for making this work tonight. I'm sorry I got to cut early here, but getting on the road early, we got about a 12-hour drive tomorrow to get out as close to Idaho as we can. So I'm going to let you all go. And then Josh, I'll work on getting this uploaded in the next day or two.
Take your time, man. Enjoy the time with your family.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, hey, appreciate you, Drew, man.
So there we go. So yeah, for me, it's Javante, but that's not to say that Brees Hall is not a good player. I think that's the trap Twitter falls into sometimes. If you go, all right, is it player A or player B? Well, I like player A. Oh, you hate player B.
Yeah.
No, like I have to make this choice here. And these are choices that we might have to make, when it comes to trade situations. All right, we have Javante on this side. How much are we waiting in? We have Brees Hall on this side. How much are we waiting on? So I love Brees Hall. I've said this to anyone who will listen to me. Brees Hall should be the 101 any format. I don't care what your format is, unless you have a weird, crazy format that really devalues running backs. He should be your 101. I don't care if it's Superflex, one quarterback, tight end, premium, whatever. Brees Hall should be your 101. But Javante is he is that dude. Earlier in the offseason, we had a question where someone said, can anyone challenge JT as the dynasty RB1 in 2022? And I said, honestly, I think there's only one player that can do it, and that player is Javonte Williams. Not saying he will do it. I'm saying I think he's the only player currently that can do it. So I think if, startups start happening after the NFL draft, we know where Brees Hall is going, and rookies are included in those startups. I would not be shocked if people are like, yeah, he's like RB5 off the board. And that's not playing a down of NFL football.
I went through it the other night on Peter Howard's Dynasty Grind show with Peter and Russ Fisher, Dynasty Outhouse, and we got him all the way up to like running back 8, just sitting there right now, saying, okay, who would you rather have, Hall or player X? And you can get him all the way up to like running back 8 without him ever playing it down, without even knowing where he lands. Now, if he ends up landing in, and I always use this as an example because it won't happen, but if he landed in Indianapolis behind Jonathan Taylor, obviously, boom, nothing. If he lands in a backfield with an incumbent back who is, a workhorse back, McCaffrey or Najee Harris, or somebody who is a pass catching back, if he landed in New Orleans with Kamara, it takes a little bit of that juice out of that, top tier running back 1, but you still saw somebody like Mark Ingram be really good and be a running back 1, like a 6 to 12 running back 1 in that same backfield. So yeah, I mean, we're here. We just haven't seen it. And so in order to make that real decisive call, we want to see it first.
And obviously I feel like every person on Twitter, their dream scenario for Brees Hall is that first round pick to Buffalo. Get him.
I'd rather go to Miami, but whatever.
Buffalo.
You can have Buffalo if you want.
I think people are saying that because they don't see Devin Singletary as a thing.
Yeah, but the problem with Buffalo is the running back 1 is the guy wearing 17 taking the snaps. He's the running back 1.
I won't disagree with you on that at all. I can only tell you what Twitter tells me.
I know.
And that seems to be one of the more popular spots. People are, if he goes to Buffalo, he's, and don't get me wrong, I think that offense, I think they unlock something new, because I think Devin Singletary is quite fine. But obviously, Brees Hall would be a massive upgrade there. So it's going to be interesting. I can't wait to hear his name called. If we're lucky on the DAP show, it happens in the first round, and then we really get to go after it. But we got this one here. This is kind of a play on a question we had last week, but I want to get with you guys on this and see what you think. This is Andrew from Birdtown at Fake Footballs. I like that handle. Is there any chance you would draft any of Jahan Dotson, Christian Watson, George Pickens, or Jameson Williams as the first wide receiver taken in your rookie draft if one of them ends up in Kansas City or Green Bay? So Zach is nodding his head no. J. Mike, what do you think? Could any of those guys be your first wide receiver off the board if they end up in Green Bay or Kansas City?
I'm pretty confident that would not be the case. Definitely not Green Bay. Like, I don't Kansas City. No, like, being first off the board, I think there, and I've said this in other places and on the Dummy Show, I think there are 4 players that you can build an offensive passing game around in this class. I think Jameson Williams is one of those guys. Obviously, what he looks like after he comes back from injury remains to be seen. But I don't know that I'm willing to just jump out the window for them when I feel really, 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 really good about the top 2 guys that I have in the class, being Burks and Wilson. I like definitely not Jahan Dotson. I'm not. I will have no Jahan Dotson. And I'm okay with being wrong on that, and I'm okay with missing that boat. But no, I don't think so. And I know that Zach will probably speak in reference to George Pickens here, but J-Mo might be the only one. But I wouldn't foresee that. I wouldn't foresee it taking him above the other two guys I mentioned.
J. Mike, I'm with you. Jameson Williams is the only person on that list that would even make me think about it. And it would be for like a second and a half, and then I would be like, "Oh yeah, those other guys on top they're gonna do it." But I want to give you guys a hot take that I don't really think is a hot take. Green Bay doesn't take a wide receiver in the first round. What? Dang it, they got 2 picks, but they traded Devontae Adams. But guess what? That's not the way they build their team.
No, Desmond Ritter's on the board. They got to take Desmond Ritter.
I think there's a better chance of that than taking a wide receiver. They haven't taken a wide receiver in the first round since 2002. And if it was the same GM that whole time and they just got a new GM this year, we'll go, okay, maybe it happens this year. But this has happened through various iterations of the Green Bay Packers. It's a philosophy they have. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, but they've been pretty successful. So obviously, they know how to find guys at Devontae Adams, 3rd round pick. They know how to find guys in, that day 2, maybe early day 3 range that can, play a little ball. So that's my hot take that I don't really think should be a hot take, but I think a lot of people would consider it a hot take.
I like it. They've been mocked, like where there's smoke, there's fire. They've been mocked enough, and the guys who do the mocks are insiders for a reason. They know a little bit more than we do. So I'll be interested to see what happens with that. As far as the question, landing spot doesn't really play very much into my equation, especially with wide receiver, because it's so talent driven and the situations change so fast that I am pretty well comfortable with what I've got for my pre-draft film grades. What will change is if one of the wide receivers that I like falls out of the first 3 rounds, he'll fall a lot because of the odds of a player overcoming 4th through 7th round draft capital as a wide receiver. It's not great. If a player that I don't like gets high draft capital, say I have Drake London. Everyone tells me I hate Drake London. I have him at wide receiver like 5-6, like right in that range. And they're like, "Oh, you're way too low." If he goes in the first round, he'll still probably be 5 or 6 unless somebody above him, read George Pickens, goes in round 4 or 5. So like that's how I adjust. I'm not going to adjust based on Green Bay. I'm not going to adjust based on Mecole Hardman going to Kansas City, because obviously Mecole Hardman is going to be the next Tyreek Hill because they paid up for him and they spent draft. Let's not fall into that trap. Let's not drop AJ Brown because he went to Tennessee. Let's draft based on talent. And of those players mentioned, I know J Mike is a lot higher on Jameson Williams. Not that I dislike Williams, because he's like right at that 5-6 for me with London, with draft capital. If he goes in the first round, I could see him leapfrogging and being a top, 5, 4, 5, whatever. But that to me is a lot more important, that draft capital. And I love George Pickens. I have George Pickens as my wide receiver 3 right now. If he goes in the first round, he's a wide receiver 3 with a bullet. If he ends up going in the first 3 rounds, he's like a wide receiver 3. It's so you have a player with all of this talent, all of this ceiling. And I compared him to the Basilica, that cathedral ceiling. but you're still standing above the catacombs. Like you're still, there are a lot of graves. There are the crypts
Mhm.
down in the bottom. And so you got to be careful, you got to be careful dreaming on these guys, because man, if you're spending a top 4 pick in a rookie draft, that's some serious capital you're allocating, and you got to understand the risk. So I guess that's my long-winded way of saying, no, that doesn't affect, like Kansas City, Green Bay doesn't affect me at all. Where they're taken in terms of rounds, like first 3 rounds, that's what we're looking for. First round is like, all right, but still players like Henry Ruggs, first player off the board. He's not the type of player that I typically draft. Hollywood Brown. And I'll be the first one to admit that Hollywood Brown has been fantastic. He's been much better than I ever thought. Not the type of player that I go after. So even though they got draft capital, I'm still ranking them and drafting them lower than where consensus goes. So I'm not getting that type of player. So yeah, I adjust, but not that way.
Yeah, and you said long-winded, but you used 2 of my favorite. I call them defenses. The AJ Brown defense. Let's not bump good players down because we think they're in bad situations. And the Hakeem Butler defense. Let's remember that the NFL will tell us what they feel about players by where they draft them. Hakeem Butler was a guy I took at 107 in a rookie draft that happened before the NFL draft. Let's just say I kissed that pick goodbye.
Oh no, baby, what you do?
Yeah. I was like, listen, man, I like this Hakeem Butler. Everybody else likes this Hakeem Butler. And then the NFL was like, we don't like Hakeem Butler. And I was like, oh no, I've been lied to. So, but then I'm going to also give you a virtual high five, Zach. I am much lower on Drake London than a lot of people as well, and I've caught a lot of bullets for that. I had to buy myself a vest because the bullets came fast and furious, and I just said, "Hey, listen, I could be wrong. I never say listen to me because I'm 100% right all the time." But I will say, and Rocky actually brought this up last week. He said, "Josh, I know you were low on Jalen Reagor before it was cool to be low on Jalen Reagor." And I said, I just go based off of what I see, but I also tell people all the time, I am not good at watching film. I am average at watching film, and I am average at analytics, and that's why I don't claim to be an expert in either, because
But
I'm average.
you can get there watching film though, because to me watching film is, some people it's an art. Like
Yes.
there are people that do it differently than I do. For me, it's not. For me, it is charting. This is what I see. This is what he did. This is the number of times that he did it. And so I have in front of me right here, like notebooks where I just chart games, and I have a plus minus chart, and I can go back through and look and see what a player did. And I chart anywhere from 8 to 12 to 14 games of players. And so it's not an art. I'm not doing anything special. I don't know any more than anybody else about, the game or the concept or the movement that players are making or that sort of thing. But I see how they succeed. And again, I'm looking for players who do things positively multiple times over multiple games, because that is what they are, and not the highlights. And it's interesting, you got a question in the chat from Steve Dennis that says, is there a player that you're seeing enough counter opinions that make you want to go back and watch? Well, Drake London is a guy that I've gone back and watched, and I still see him. People are trying to make the excuse that he gets vertical separation, and he does. But he's great at that. He's tremendous. He's a contested catch player. He's also really good post catch. If you can get him inside and get him open on a slant, like mesh concepts and rub routes and that sort of thing, and create some separation for him. But when I go back and watch, I'm still seeing the same thing. I'm still seeing him use his body, use his physicality. I'm seeing Keaton Slovis throw the ball up when London is not open in the traditional sense of the word, where he's got a defender in his hip pocket, but Slovis is still throwing it. London will make an adjustment, box out, go up, make that high point. I've seen a lot of guys do that over the years, and especially recently, N'Keal Harry, Hakeem Butler, Arcega Whiteside, like all of these players, that's not how the NFL plays right now. And there are a few players that do that. Mike Evans still does that. Mike Evans is great at that. Mike Williams does that to some extent, although I will argue that he is, and T. Higgins does this. Maybe it was Clemson that was teaching them, but they are so good at the back shoulder plays on the sideline. And that is not something that you necessarily saw with Drake London. Drake London was more of the post up vertical separation. You're going to need a specific type of quarterback. You're going to have a specific type of game plan. And it's not the way the NFL is trending. The NFL has started to play with the guys who create a lot of separation, lateral separation, on the field. So a quarterback is seeing, a yard, 2 yards, 3 yards of separation, throwing the ball. And that is the new NFL. And a lot of those guys they're using on the outside, but also sliding them into the slot. You're seeing players who traditionally were outside receivers get 20, 25, 30% work in the slot because they can do both. They can create that separation in both of those areas. I think if London gets split out wide, he's going to struggle a lot unless he's got a DGAF quarterback, unless he's got somebody like Josh Allen, if he ends up in New Orleans and somehow Jameis Winston is the guy there for the next few years, great. Like I'm in. Like I can see that Winston will throw the ball up and London will high point because he can do that. But it's a lot more difficult for me to see him being successful in the NFL as currently constituted. Now, if we're drafting Drake London for 10 years ago, 15 years ago, hell yeah. That's exactly the kind. That's the Des Bryant, Calvin Johnson. Like every team had the X receiver, and not every team has a traditional X go up and get it guy anymore because that's not what the NFL does. I mean, and you see this, my theory, and it's just a theory, and I'm a dummy. You can throw it right back at me. But my theory is you started to see the proliferation of 7-on-7 in high school. You started to see the proliferation of spread offenses and throw the ball down the field and get everybody spread out at wide receiver in college. And so now you're seeing that trickle up to the NFL. So I think looking in the past to try to figure out the way the NFL is moving is the wrong direction to be looking.
No, and you said everything that I saw, but just way better than I could ever say it. So I appreciate that you did it because that has always been my biggest thing about Drake London is that separation. Like it's funny because I've actually heard a lot of people say, he could be Mike Evans, and I go, man, you are really putting a comp on a guy. Like that's not like it's not like, hey, he's the third wide receiver on an average team. You're talking about a guy that's been elite since he stepped on an NFL field.
But Mike Evans was really lucky, and I'm like he's insanely talented, but he was really lucky to play with Manziel in college. And Manziel would I remember watching, I went to a Red Sox game and we're sitting at Uno Pizzeria outside of the ballpark watching Texas A&M and watching Manziel, and people are raving about Manziel. And I'm like, no, Manziel is not great, but he'll throw it up. And Mike Evans is incredible. And then he ended up with Jameis Winston, who again will throw it up. And then he ended up with Tom Brady, who it doesn't matter if you're open
Yeah.
or not, he'll hit you because he knows your catch radius. And
Yeah.
like I watched that for years up here in New England. You're just like, I don't know how he saw that, but he's gonna hit you if there's any modicum of openness there. And so like, not to take anything away from Mike Evans because he's incredible. He's a one of the best receivers from start to his career to finish that we've ever seen. But it's got to be a perfect storm, for London to hit that. Like he's got to have the perfect quarterback, and he did with Slovis kind of in college, but even his first couple of years, I mean, he was overshadowed by Pittman, he was overshadowed by Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then he kind of took off, and so it's not like people are hearing that Drake London shouldn't be the wide receiver one, and they're hearing you hate Drake London, and like I don't. But there's a really finite number of possibilities available for him to be really successful in the NFL.
I don't hate Drake London. I just got a lot more guys in front of him than I think most people do. So I hate Drake London, which is fine. I will carry that banner if that's the banner I need to carry, because I know I was not popular when I mentioned that I did not like Jalen Reagor, and that left me kind of alone on an island as well, and I was fine with that. Listen, I love when the people come out after I've been wrong and say, "Hey, you remember that time you were wrong?" I'd be like, "I absolutely do." And I love the time when I'm right, because I'm usually by myself in that moment. And, there's usually not people coming out to say, "Hey, you were right about this one," But I have that silent self-reflection where I go, "Okay, I was right about that one. I'm maybe I know a little bit about what I was talking about in this situation." But yeah, I'll actually tell you a quick funny Johnny Manziel story on the way out here. Uh, in my younger years, I used to throw a draft party. Yeah, get the pizza, get the wings, get all the fellas over, and we would sit down and we would just watch that first round of the draft. And this was the year that Johnny Manziel was coming out. Dallas was unsure about what they were going to do at quarterback, and most of my friends are Eagles fans. So Dallas had I think they were like 13 that year, I believe they were, and yeah, you got to take Johnny Manziel, and I'm sitting silently in the corner because I could see Jerry doing that. Jerry likes to flash. Jerry likes to sizzle, and Johnny Manziel was flash and sizzle. I said, "Oh man," and I'm arguing with them. No, they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. And I'm just like silently praying, please, if you hear me up there, don't let Dallas take Johnny Manziel. And I can't even remember the pick at this point, but it wasn't Johnny Manziel. And I was so excited. And I believe the Eagles picked like 2 or 3 picks after the Cowboys that year. So then Johnny Manziel's still on the board now. And now you Eagles fans are going to turn around and pick Johnny Manziel. Watch this. And the Eagles front office was smart that year, and they didn't take Johnny Manziel. So yeah, Manziel, that was a time to be alive, Johnny Manziel, man. I'll tell you what, man. And I don't know what he's been doing with himself after all the football. I think he's been in every football league that has been invented since. Probably on a USFL roster, we just don't know about it. So
you gotta hang on to that dream, man. You gotta keep it. You gotta keep the flame lit.
listen, he's probably still on that jersey in Cleveland somewhere that it's got about 48 names on it. I guess now they can add Baker to that, even though that was kind of, I felt like they did Baker a little dirty there, but they can put him on there now. And I guess Watson is the currently the last name on that jersey. We'll see what happens there. For maybe 2 or 3 into it, we'll see what happens there. But I wanna thank you guys for coming on. We'll wrap it up because we are about hour and 35 minutes into this bad boy. So your time is valuable, so I don't want to take too much of it. I appreciate both of you guys coming on. It has been such a good time. Like I said earlier, not just analysts, but you're two of my favorite people in this space. So I appreciate you guys coming on. Just give everybody the rundown again on your way out. So if they didn't hear you at the top, they can know where to find you, know where to hear those big brains saying smart things.
Well, so we're Dynasty Dummies over at the DFPN Network, but it's really not about us. I know, like I'm flattered. I appreciate you, Josh, and all of the kind words, but for us, it's all about the other guys at the network. It's you should be following Matt Foreman, Joe at FF Trader Joe, Russ, Sal, Kevin, Steve, and Kyle. Like it's a family over there, and all of those guys, they're not necessarily all as active as they had been on Twitter, but they're all still lurking. They're all still around. And if you have questions about your fantasy team or just life in general, you can do a heck of a lot worse than sidling up to one of the guys at the DFPN at work.
Yeah, I follow all those guys. I'm pretty sure I even follow Steve's chair too. So all you guys over there are great. Just so many. All your voices are great, and it's always good when that podcast hits the feed and you go, all right, let's fire this one up real quick. So so again, I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate everybody in the chat. Chat was awesome today, man. We had so many people popping in and out. I don't even want to go through names because I'll forget somebody and then be embarrassed for the fact. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for the questions. I love chat questions because we could do a show sheet and we can kind of maybe research our answers a little bit, have things at the ready. But when you get that chat question, it's like, all right, let's go. Like what is this knowledge that you claim to have? None. It keeps me safe when I get something wrong. So, but appreciate the people in the chat. Remember, if you're in the chat, hit subscribe, hit the bell, because it's not only us on the DAP network. The Junkies, they do their live stream every week. They're awesome. Every once in a while, Russ and Rocky will do a Trade Addicts pod live just to give you guys a little taste of what they got going on. And like I said, April 28th, day one of the draft, we're all going to be on for a draft show. It's not going to just be Drew and I. We're going to have Rocky there. Russ said he might do it shirtless. I don't know. You'll have to check in on that one and see if that happens. We're going to have Andrew Hall, Scott Sidlow, Casey Kasem that we spoke about earlier. Everybody's going to be on, which is good for me because I can just kind of sit in the background. I can just, come up with little one-liners like I'm known to do, and then just let all of those big brains kind of really give you guys a lot of information, especially when these offensive players start coming off the board. And then if you're doing the podcast thing, listen, we're at an hour and 38 minutes. That's a lot of time. You could be doing anything, like literally anything else, and you have decided to listen to this podcast. So I want to give you all my appreciation as well. Just remember, if you somehow stumbled on us, hit subscribe. If you are a loyal subscriber, don't forget to rate and review. There's algorithms and stuff that I will never be privy to, but apparently rate and reviews help that thing out. So on that note, usually it to someone and they say late, but I guess I'm gonna have to just say late myself. So